Hey everyone, welcome to our August garden tour. This is probably going to be our last garden tour of the season. It has been so hot here and some of our plants are on their last limb and they're going to start going into dormancy. There's time for them to go to bed and recollect their energy. But I thought we would show you what the garden looks like right now and talk about some of our peaks and some of our pits of this gardening season. I think there's still a lot of beautiful things to see. So let's get started. So we're right here in front of our cottage trellis bed and it is just completely filled up. I am amazed at how big some of these plants have gotten. We've got the hot pink pentas here that are just like reaching and bushing out really well. I will say that the light pink color, I cannot remember what the name is, but those did not seem to like our environment as well, I guess we'll say. They just didn't seem to get as big. They are still blooming, but this hot pink one here is just so pretty, and it's really striking. So I think this is one that we would definitely repeat next year. It pairs really nicely with the Supertunia Latte. I can never remember the name of that one. And it's just looking really full. And then we've got the pink gomphrena here, which was not blooming for a while, but now it is starting to put on the blooms, and they are a little bit smaller than usual, but it's still really kind of nice and ethereal in here. And then, of course, the lamb's ear is just big and massive this time of year every year. It's standing up nice and tall, and we've got some really big leaves on it. This Golden Dreams Coleus is huge. Look how big this leaf is. When we were planting this, I was very hopeful that it was going to do well, and I'm just going to say this is my favorite Coleus that we have ever grown before. So this is the Golden Dreams Coleus from Proven Winners. It's from their Color Blaze series. It can do sun or shade. And you can see here, these two on the end get more sun, so they have like a little bit more of a red texture, or red color. And then you can see this one here is kind of under the vitex. It's more green, which is kind of interesting, but they're still very pretty. And then of course the clematis are, oh look, we have a bloom. The clematis are doing their like light second flush. Usually this time of year we get some of the stems just start to die off, kind of like self-pruning itself. But this is a type of clematis that we will shear back at the beginning of the season anyway, so I'm not too concerned about that. And then we've got a repeated planting down here with the Supertunias. And the Supertunias, they don't do as well for us in the ground once we get to this time of year, just because it's so hot. And you'll see when we get to the deck, they're doing really well in the containers, but in the ground, this time of year, once we get to like September, we usually start to pull them. But considering how early we plant them, we get a 4 to 5 months out of them, which is really nice. The Vitex tree is still blooming just a little bit. Mostly it is done though, but it is big. It was not this big when we first started this season. And then we've got the dressed up evening gown heucheras down here that we planted in a video a few weeks back that are doing really nice. And this bed, this is my favorite bed in the garden, like hands down. It worked out really well this year. All of the pinks and then the foxgloves back there. It just is like really soft and peaceful when you come out into the garden. So we've got this little corner over here that we did in a video. We don't really have a name for this spot, but look at this lantana. This is another lantana from Proven Winners. I don't remember the name, but I'll put it on the screen for you. Just big, fiery red blooms. So pretty. Lantana does really well for us, and I knew these were going to like it. They love the heat. They love getting full sun, and this gets like baked in the afternoon. You may remember we had a 9 bark back here, and it deceased. Did not work out for us. So we've got a pennisetum back here. This is Vertigo pennisetum, and this is one that overwintered for us and came back. But it was in a container just sitting on our deck for most of the season, which is why it looks a little wonky right now. But I'm hopeful that next year it'll come back and it'll be big and glorious and make a really big impact here in this flower bed right at the entrance of the Union Garden. The phlox that we planted is doing okay. It was very hot when we planted it, so it's looking a little dry, but hoping that it'll bounce back for the spring. And then if we come into the Union Garden here, I was hoping that for our final garden tour we would have our gravel done, but we have just been so busy and we're planning a wedding. We just went on vacation. I'm getting ready to go on another trip for work, so it has just been a madhouse around here, but we're going to get to it eventually, hopefully this year. But the Union Garden is looking a little tired this time of year. Of course, the limelight still looks really nice, and I see like a little bit of pink on the edges, but usually for us, the blooms just go straight to brown. We don't get that nice pink color down here in the south like you guys do up in the north. But I wanted to come over here because I wanted to show you this coffee cups. And I need to prune this off of here, but look how big this guy is. Oh my goodness. And there are new leaves still coming out of it in the middle. So, I mean, it's not done yet. It's probably going to get maybe another foot tall. I mean, just big, massive leaves. And we bought this. I'm going to have to see if I can find a picture. So we bought these from Creekside Nursery last spring, so spring 2021. And at that time, there had been a crop failure of these. And so they ended up getting like little teeny tiny babies. I'm not kidding. It was this tall when we planted it. And I was like, it's fine. It'll get big eventually, maybe. And then it did get pretty big last year, and then it came back for us, and it's huge. So, I mean, if you get something that is small and the tag says it's going to get a certain size, trust the tag because it will. This is certainly making a big impact over here. So other than that, you know, there's not much going on over here. I think that we're probably going to change things up for this area for the 2023 gardening season. Wow, I cannot believe I'm already saying that. That's crazy. Just because with the soil over here, I mean, no one planted anything in this garden before we lived here. So it is very, very heavy clay. I think we're going to try to amend a little bit over here, and then also just plant some different things. So hopefully we don't have to water as much and we don't have to do as much maintenance over here. And then when we get to this time of year too, we still have stuff to look at. But right now, it's not looking great. The only thing over here that I'm really enjoying are the butterfly bushes. They are still going strong. And those are Pugster Blue, and we have really good success with the Pugster series. They do really well for us here in North Carolina. So that is the Union Garden for now. When we do the gravel over here, which I'm hoping will be this year, we will take you guys along for that process. I think it's gonna change this whole area a lot. So let's go up to the shed bed. Now this one, oh look, butterfly. See if you can get him, Brian, before he flies away. This bed is just covered with butterflies, like all day long now. They love this lantana. They are all over the supertunias like all day long. I mean, it's just like craziness this time of year. I do want to point out, so we have some coneflowers in here, and just looking at this, you might think, geez, those look like a little worse for wear. You should deadhead those. But a couple of weeks ago, Brian and I were having a drink out on the deck, and we happened to look out here, and there was a yellow finch eating the seeds from the spent coneflower blooms. So if you want to provide some food for birds and wildlife in your garden, consider not deadheading. I know that it is not the most aesthetically pleasing look to have a black spent bloom in your garden, but it will attract wildlife, and we've seen them come back almost every day at this point. I think Brian got some really cool pictures that I'll put on the screen here. And you know, that's another reason that we plant, is to improve the environment. You know, we've talked a little bit about the monarch butterflies as well as planting milkweed. So it's just really cool to see in your own garden. So we've got the yellow coneflowers that we planted in here that are looking decent. It is really hot here, and for the next week we're still going to be in the 90s. I thought we were past this, but apparently not. So we will be out here watering a little bit more just to make sure that these plants can make it through to the fall, and then next spring hopefully they'll be good to go. So if I take a walk around this way, you can see we've still got some foxgloves that are putting on another shoot of blooms. For us here, and I guess because we have such a long growing season, we usually do get a few more stems after the main stem has spent. They're definitely not as tall as the first bloom, but it's still, some extra color in the garden and still nice to see. The other thing I wanted to point out in this bed is this agastache. This is Queen Nectarine, and I think this is new for next year from Proven Winners. We are growing this as a trial for Walter's Gardens, and it is doing so well. When we got this plant, it was pretty small. I mean, it was maybe like half a foot tall, and it kind of bloomed and then went out and started putting on more growth. And it has been in bloom for probably the last 3 to 4 weeks, and I mean, I don't see any signs of it stopping anytime soon. So A+ from us on Queen Nectarine. I highly recommend that one. This Lantana here at the front is also taking off. I mean, look how tall this is. And this thunder. We're going to have to hurry up with this garden tour. I think we're about to have a storm. But this Lantana is really taking off. So we planted this right around the 4th of July. So it has been in the ground for only a couple of months. And, I think we were both thinking when we were planting that late in the season, like, this is pointless. It's so late in the season. These are barely going to get started. But, I mean, hey, they're doing it. And we have been fertilizing these every week with water-soluble fertilizer, and they have just been blooming their little heads off. So Lantana is another great one for the south, for us southern gardeners. We've got some ageratum in here that is finally blooming. We grew this from seed, and I planted it by myself one day while Brian was working. Now it's been a few months. It's really well established, and it's really pretty. We've got the Sage Advice, Russian sage, back there that we planted that has just started blooming. It's looking really nice. The sedum up here, the salvia, we've got to put some extra water out here. As you can see, it is just kind of laid over a little bit, and it is so hot here, you guys. I mean, we're really pushing it, planting a bunch of stuff this time of year. But the sedum is doing really well, and as you know, sedum, they don't need much extra care. Water them a little bit, not that much, and they will be just fine. I really can't wait to see the sedum next year when it comes out and has that really dark black foliage. I think that's going to be a really nice contrast in here, because we don't really have any contrast in here other than the Japanese maple. And as you can see, this time of year, it is green. It is not red. So I would say maybe in the next month or so, it will start to change back to red. And then once we get into fall and we get those cool nights, it's going to be like bright, fiery red, which is really nice. Now, we did transplant these 2 Baptisias. And, we talked about Baptisias have a very long taproot, so sometimes they don't transplant well. So you can see this one here still has some green, which is looking nice. And there is also new growth coming out at the bottom, which is a really good sign. We've got 2 new little shoots. However, my friend over here, she's dead. Yeah. Both of these have water running to them, so they've got the same kind of conditions. I don't know if maybe we just didn't get as many roots on this one, but we do have an extra pink lemonade that we can pop in here. So hopefully we won't see any droop. So we'll go through the moon garden very quickly. There's not much happening in here, although I did want to talk about this backlight phlox from Proven Winners. It has been blooming all summer long. I have not deadheaded it. We have not come out here and clipped anything off. It has just been blooming and blooming and blooming. Now, of course, it's not as full as the first flush of blooms, but it is still some color back here and something to look at least. The verbena is kind of done at this point. Oh, we do have a foxglove. Look at that. I didn't even notice that. So this is Camelot White Foxglove, and while it is really pretty, I did not have as much luck with these as I do the other Camelot colors, and I don't know why that is. It just didn't bloom as profusely for me, and the bloom also didn't last very long. Like the Camelot Lavender, those blooms last for, a week or more. And I feel like these only last for a couple of days, and then the petals fall off or it turns brown. So I don't know that I would grow that one again. The Invincibelle Limetas? No, Invincibelle Wee White. These have performed amazing for us. I was a little concerned because, hydrangeas can be finicky if they don't get enough water. And so we do have a drip line running right by these, and they have performed amazing all summer. They've never wilted, and they do get full sun in here in the afternoon for probably 3 or 4 hours, and they're doing really well. The Sprinter Boxwood Hedge is putting on a lot of growth. Look how tall this is. These were maybe like here when we planted them this season, and some of them have a lot of growth. So maybe by 2 years or so, they'll be touching, I hope. And then we'll have a nice, beautiful green ring. Now, we have had some spider mite damage, and it's kind of typical for us, especially here in the South. So we have come out with Captain Jack and neem oil kind of alternating just to kind of keep the spider mites on their toes. And so far, we haven't seen anything that looks horrible. So we'll keep going this way. These annuals in here, they are just about done. And something we're realizing back here in this corner is that we just need more color. We went on a walk this morning and we saw some New Guinea impatiens that were like mass planted, and it was beautiful. So I think that's definitely something that we want to add back here next year. But if you guys can think of any other shade plants that have some color to them, drop it down in the comments. Let us know what you would plant back here. I was also thinking maybe some kind of shade hydrangea that has color on it. Just want more drama back here, and it's just a lot of foliage this time of year. And I will also say this year our grass has been incredibly hard to keep green. So we have tall fescue grass, and it has just gotten so hot here in Charlotte that it's very hard to keep it up. And we also have our vole friend that is back again in the garden back here, so we are just struggling. Oh, and we have some interesting news that we just discovered. So we have been gardening as a Zone 7B for a few years now, and we just realized that we are now a Zone 8. So I don't know when that changed, but at some point this summer, our specific zip code was changed to an 8. So there are a few things in our garden that we have planted as a Zone 7, like the 9 bark, I'm pretty sure was a Zone 7. So we will see what comes back next year. It is an average over a few years, so it's not like, all of a sudden we're 5 degrees hotter in Charlotte and things are dying. It's an average, so we may not notice that much of a difference. But I think that the North Pole arborvitaes are also a Zone 7. So, yeah, that is a little scary. We'll see. But now as we're moving forward with planting and shopping, we're going to be doing Zone 8 stuff. So the Wicked Witch coleus are doing really well. They love this shade back here. Now, of course, they would be as big as those Golden Dreams coleus if they were in the sun, probably. But they are still cranking along. Salvia is still blooming, kind of. And we have some Serendipity alliums that are still in bloom. They have come and gone for the most part. But this one here looks like a fresh bloom. So pretty. Now, I will say in comparison to last year, they are not blooming as profusely. And I don't know what it is. I thought that it was water at first. And I came in here and we tested the water. The water is good. It could be sunlight, maybe. I don't know. It's just been so hot. They're not getting as tall as they were last year, and the blooms aren't quite as big. Maybe it's just an off year. We've got some lemon jade sedum here that is blooming, and I love the way it looks this time of year. It's just like a nice drama over here. Now, it is flopping a little bit. And I mean, we've had a lot of rain recently. We've had some like heavy downpour, so I'm wondering if maybe it's just angry, and it'll right itself sooner than later. Over here, so I don't know if you guys remember, but we planted some begonias in this little island bed from just teeny tiny little 6-packs, and look how big they've gotten. It was a cheap investment, and they have gotten really big. So I know I've said this before, but I think we're going to do more begonias next year. We keep driving around town, and everybody has begonias, and they still look beautiful. So I'm on the begonia train, you guys. We're going to have more in our garden next year, I promise. So the Hudson Bay hostas are looking pretty good. Now, if you guys remember, we used to have a big limb over this pathway here that was shading these a lot. And then Brian trimmed that last year. So this is their first time getting like mostly full sun, and they are doing so good. Most of our hostas that are in full sun usually have like burned edges, or especially this time of year, I mean, we'll see whole leaves that are burned off, but these are cooking so nicely. I shouldn't say cooking because they are not burnt, but they look really nice this time of year. And they will probably touch, I think, next year. I'm going to claim it. Next year, they're going to be big enough to touch. And then you can see the Jacob's ladder is starting to go dormant. It's got like yellow on the leaves. This is one that is zone 7. So I really, really, really hope that one comes back for us next year because it's so pretty in the spring. And then right here at the edge, we've got some more ageratum that is blooming in here. But look at this French vanilla. So this is the summerific hibiscus from Proven Winners French vanilla. This is its 2nd year in the ground. And this is about its 3rd flush of blooms. So if you've never grown these hibiscus before, they come up from the ground every year. They put on all of their growth in one season, and then at the beginning of next spring, you'll cut them back to the ground and they do it all over again. And so this one has bloomed for us once, and then we come through and pull off any of the blooms that didn't push themselves off. See, like this one over here? Usually they push themselves off, but see, this is a spent bloom, so you can just pull it out. And so it bloomed for us, and then it put on a little bit more growth, and then we noticed some more buds, and all of that bloomed, and now we're getting a 3rd one, which I'm not mad at. It's beautiful, and it's completely covered. Now, we'll say as, you know, the bloom cycles go on, the blooms themselves get smaller. So the first round of blooms, I mean, they're big, like saucer-sized blooms. And then these are just a little bit smaller, but it's still amazing. I mean, I expected them to bloom and then be done. It's really cool to see them bloom over and over again. These blooms are massive. I can't wait to see this in the winter. We cut all of the blooms off last year, so we didn't have anything to look at. But I'm excited to see this bloom head in the winter. I think it's going to be some really nice interest. And then down here, we've got the Rockin' Fuchsia that has really put on a lot of growth recently. And I'm hoping that this will come back for us. We have some of the other Rockin' varieties in our garden, and they have come back for us every year. So I'm hoping that this will do the same. We've got some other Supertunias in here that were just kind of like extras left over. But we need to get in here and trim this boxwood, Brian. It's looking a little bit woolly right here. This container is just like wild right now. So this is the Plum Dandy from Proven Winners, and we also had a verbena in the back. It died. It was over. So we pulled that, and then this just kind of took over, and it's really beautiful. And then there's some Super Bells in the bottom. So white Super Bells, and then there is a Royal Velvet Supertunia, and then there is also a foxglove still blooming in this container. Look at that. How pretty. Oh, I knocked it off. And I bet you this is going to throw seed out right here in this little area, and we're going to have foxgloves coming up next year, which will be nice. The fountain is looking pretty good. We popped an extra evening gown heuchera here in the middle since our Senecio Angel Wings kicked the bucket. And then the Supertunia Priscilla on this side is hanging on, still blooming, still doing our double blooms, which we love. And then this side, I think that we lost it. It was barely hanging on, and I think that we lost it. But it's still kind of pretty. I mean, the alyssum over here is starting to rebloom now that our nights are getting a little bit cooler. We're still very hot during the day, but the nights are cooling off. And so I'm happy that the alyssum even made it through the summer. I'll take that as a win. The coleus here are just crazy. I mean, Brian trimmed them back a good deal before we hosted a party last weekend. But these coleus were all grown from seed, and had I known they were going to be so beautiful and massive, I think I would have probably picked something other than just lime green. But that's a note for next year. Maybe we'll get something with some color in here, and it'll be really striking. We also have our plant hoard here. This is where we just line them up so that we can make them easily accessible for water. We're just waiting until it cools off a little bit more before we plant anything else, just because it's so much extra work when plants are out in the garden and you've got to go add supplemental water because of the heat. It's really easy when they're right here, and you can just water them and keep an eye on them too. So those will be coming up for future videos. But let's talk about Supertunias in containers. Oh my goodness. This one looks even better. So for whatever reason, this time of year, Supertunias in the ground they start to languish, and they just start to succumb to the heat, I think. But in pots, they do so well for us. And this one has been in here for maybe 3 or 4 months. And, I mean, it's huge. And we've cut it back a few times. So this is Mini Vista Indigo and Mini Vista White. And the white is just not quite as vigorous in our experience as the indigo. I'm fine with that. I love purple. And then over here we have Mini Vista White again. And then we have Picasso in purple, which is a really unique Supertunia. It's pink, purple on the inside, and then green edges. So these are doing really well. Again, water-soluble fertilizer every Friday. And they are just loving their life. Now, when we take this out of here, it's probably going to be very root-bound. But we do want to keep these arborvitaes in the center. So we may have to do some root pruning. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see how that goes. And then look how big this little coleus is now. He was so tiny when we first planted him. Yeah, little treasure. So we'll keep walking this way. And I wanted to show you guys. So this is a butterfly pea that Brad from Garden Evolution sent us. He sent us some seeds, and it's finally blooming. Look how pretty this is. It took forever for it to really take off, but it's finally blooming, and every day there's usually a few new blooms on it, which is amazing. So maybe this will seed itself in the garden, and we'll just have it for years to come. Okay, before the storm comes, let's run out to the front yard, and I'll show you what's going on in the front gardens. All right, last but not least, the front garden. So our containers that we did a few months back with Pike Nurseries are looking really well. Now the Superbena is not blooming as profusely as it should be, and I'm thinking it's a sun issue. These don't get quite as much sun as Superbena really needs to bloom, so that's just a note for us next year. Maybe we'll put something in here that's a little bit more shade tolerant. But the Supertunias that are on the edge are still blooming really nicely, and of course the spirals are looking great. So the Supertunias are still doing it. Oh my goodness, they are huge, and they have perfectly filled up this whole spot. And from far away, I think they still look really nice, but they are definitely not at their peak now. I would say we're on a downturn, and it's kind of perfect because at this time of year, we usually get really antsy and we're ready for the next thing. We're ready to put in our pansies or whatever we're going to put here for the fall. So within the next month, I would say that these will probably be at the end of their lifespan and we will pull them out, which sounds sad, but they are annual, so they're not meant to last forever. And if you think about when we put these in, we put these in right after my birthday, so I want to say it was like early April. And so that's April, May, June, July, August. And then if they make it to September, I mean, that's 6 months almost. So that's half of a year. And I know that people say, you know, annuals are a big investment for just one season. Why would you spend that much money? But you're getting half of a year's growth out of them and enjoyment. And that's basically a full growing season. So I think that it's actually very well worth the money. So all that to say, now that these are close to the end of their life, of course, we're already thinking about what we want to put here for next spring. We've done Supertunias for the past few years, and it is a really beautiful show. We've done a few different color combinations. It somehow always has purple in it. I think that's my influence on the garden. But let us know in the comments what you think we should have up here as annuals for next spring. So a few ideas we've been throwing around is begonias and angelonia. I think that would make a really beautiful combination. Or maybe some of the new Supertunias that are coming out. I think it would be really pretty to put the midnight, I think it's called Midnight Supertunia, and yellow Mini Vista Supertunia. I'll put some pictures of these on the screen so that you can see. I think that would be a very different vibe up here because this is kind of like bright and cheerful and springy, and if we put a dark Supertunia, it'd be a little bit more moody. And we haven't done that in this space yet. So let us know in the comments what you, if you have any ideas for annuals. So I'm going to walk back over this way because I want to show you this ridiculous coleus. Oh my goodness, I wish that I had like 10 more of these. This is so pretty. And I know I said that the Golden Dreams coleus was my favorite, but this one is a close second. So it does have a little bit of, let me pull this and I can show you. It does have a little bit on some of them like a green edge. And it is supposed to be, you know, completely red. And it was for most of the season. I'm just going to chalk it up to it's end of the season and it's just getting wonky. But every person that has come to our house recently, even our neighbor brought our mail a few weeks ago, and she said, "What is that plant? That is beautiful." So it just goes to show that in order to make an impact, it doesn't always have to be blooms. It can just be foliage, which is something really cool to consider. So other than that, I think we're very happy with how the front flower beds have turned out this season. I'm sad to see them go, but I'm also very excited to get pansies in here and change it up. And before I forget, I wanted to point out the caladiums in the hanging basket. They are doing incredibly well. So there are 12 caladium bulbs in each basket. They are on drip. They get 30 minutes of drip every single day. And I think the math comes out to like a quarter of a gallon of water. So I think that's 1 quart. And they're loving their life. They're doing so good. So before we wrap this up, I'll just walk over here and touch on this area a little bit. Now, we've had some successes and failures over here. Success, incredible hydrangea. Can't go wrong with it. It's a beautiful addition to any garden. I think we are also talking about maybe adding some of these at my parents' house in the fall or maybe early next spring. However, failures over here. the sun patience. Now, we planted over 100 sun patience, and this area just gets way more shade than we originally thought. We also don't have drip running at the edge of the beds. So I think, you know, I don't know that we would put sun patience back in these spots again, maybe New Guinea impatiens or begonias. But you can see the difference between these that are just looking sad versus these that get full sun most of the day. I mean, they're blooming really nicely. I just wish all of them looked like that. It would have been made for a really cool show. And then I will very briefly touch on the caladiums because we just did a video on them. But they are looking so great. Would highly recommend growing caladiums anywhere in your garden. This was our first year growing them, and I think we'll definitely be return customers because they just keep going, keep pushing out foliage, and there is little to no maintenance required, so that is an A+ for us. So that is our garden for the season. I know it feels sad to say that we're done giving garden tours, but you guys know a garden is never completed, and we're certainly not going anywhere. We have a ton of projects still to do. We'll be doing some fall planting with pansies. We have some fall containers we're going to be doing, and then of course the dreaded leaf cleanup. So we'll be sure to take you guys along for the ride, but I just wanted to say on behalf of Brian and I, thank you guys so much for following along this season. We have loved sharing our garden with you, and I hope you've enjoyed it as well. Make sure you subscribe to our channel and click that like button down below, and let us know in the comments what you want to see next as we move into fall. Other than that, thank you guys so much, and we'll see you in the next video. Bye.